Clara Whitmore's hands would not stop shaking. She pressed them against her worn traveling dress, willing them to be still, but 3 years of flinching at every sudden sound had trained her body to betray her. The stagecoach had left her standing in the dust of Billings, Montana, with nothing but a carpetbag and the freedom she had purchased with her husband's death. She was 28 years old. She was a widow, and for the first time in her marriage, she was not afraid to fall asleep. But the stagecoach to Helena had already departed, and Clara Whitmore was about to make a mistake that would change everything. Before we continue, if you're enjoying Clara's story, please subscribe to our channel and follow her journey to the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's return to Clara standing alone in a frontier town about to climb aboard the wrong wagon. Clara counted her money for the third time. $47. That was all that remained of the life she had sold piece by piece in Boston. Her mother's pearls had bought the stagecoach ticket. Her wedding ring, that cursed band of gold, had paid for 3 weeks of lodging while she waited for the bruises to fade enough that strangers would stop staring. "Ma'am?" Clara's head snapped up. A young man in a depot uniform was watching her with the kind of careful expression people used around skittish horses. "The next stage to Helena don't run till Thursday," he said. "That's 4 days from now." 4 days, Clara repeated. "Yes, ma'am. Summer schedule runs different. Lots of miners heading to the goldfields, so the coaches get full up quick." Clara closed her eyes. 4 days in Billings meant 4 days of paying for a room. 4 days of her money draining away. 4 days closer to having nothing at all. "Is there another way to get to Helena?" she asked. The young man scratched his chin. "Well, some folks hire private wagons. Costs more, though. Or you could ask around, see if anyone's heading that direction and willing to take a passenger." Clara looked toward the dusty street where wagons and horses moved in the afternoon heat. The July sun beat down without mercy, and she could feel sweat gathering at the back of her neck. "Thank you," she said quietly. She picked up her carpetbag and walked toward the row of wagons lined up near the mercantile. Her legs felt unsteady the way they always did when she had to talk to strangers. Thomas had hated when she talked to anyone without his permission. Even now, 3 months after they had buried him, she half expected to feel his hand close around her arm, squeezing until the bones ground together. "Stop it," she told herself fiercely. "He's dead. He can't hurt you anymore." But the fear did not listen to logic. It never had. A man was loading supplies into a covered wagon near the end of the row. Clara approached slowly, clutching her carpetbag like a shield. "Excuse me, sir." He did not turn around, just grunted as he hefted a sack of grain. "Are you heading toward Helena by any chance?" Another grunt. Clara took that as encouragement. "I can pay for passage. I'm a trained nurse if that helps. I won't be any trouble, I promise." The man waved a hand vaguely toward the back of the wagon without looking at her. Clara hesitated, then climbed up, settling herself among the supplies. Her heart was hammering, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. "You did it," she thought. "You asked for help, and the world didn't end." The wagon lurched into motion 15 minutes later. Clara braced herself against a flour barrel and watched Billings disappear in the dust behind them. She did not know where Helena would lead her, but it had to be better than where she had been. The sun moved across the sky as the wagon rolled on. Clara dozed fitfully, exhaustion finally catching up with her after weeks of sleeping in strange beds and waking at every creak of floorboards. When she opened her eyes again, the wagon had stopped near a creek, and she could hear a man's voice speaking to the horses. She climbed down carefully, stretching her stiff legs. And then she froze. The man unhitching the horses was not the same man she had seen loading supplies. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly under a worn hat. When he turned and saw her, his eyes brown and warm as summer earth went wide with surprise. "Well," he said slowly, I don't recall ordering a passenger with my coffee beans. Clara's stomach dropped. You're not going to Helena. No, ma'am, I am not. He pushed his hat back, studying her with an expression that mixed confusion with something that might have been amusement. I'm heading northwest to my ranch near the Gallatin, about 40 miles in the opposite direction from Helena. Oh, God. Clara pressed a hand to her mouth. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I thought there was a man loading supplies, and I asked him, and he waved at the wagon, and I thought, that was probably Bill Henderson. His wagon was parked right next to mine. The man's voice was calm, almost gentle. Easy mistake to make. All these covered wagons look the same. Clara felt tears burning in her eyes. She had made a mistake. A stupid, foolish mistake. And now she was stranded in the middle of nowhere with a stranger, and she had no idea how she would get to Helena, and her money would not last. And, hey now. The man took a step toward her, then stopped when she flinched back. His brow furrowed. I ain't gonna hurt you, ma'am. Take a breath. I'm sorry, Clara whispered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Nothing to be sorry for. He held up both hands, palms out, the way you might approach a wounded animal. My name's Samuel Brennan. Most folks call me Sam. What's yours? Clara. She swallowed hard. Clara Whitmore. Well, Miss Clara, here's how I see it. You can either walk back to Billings, which I wouldn't recommend seeing as it's about 15 miles and there's mountain lions in these hills. Or you can come to my ranch, rest up for the night, and one of my men can take you back to town tomorrow. Clara stared at him. In her experience, men did not offer help without expecting something in return. Thomas had taught her that lesson well. Why would you do that? She asked. Sam tilted his head, something flickering in his eyes that she could not read. Because you're stranded and I was raised to help folks in need. That's reason enough, ain't it? I can pay you. Don't want your money. He turned back to the horses. There's fresh water in the creek if you want to fill your canteen. We've got another couple hours of riding ahead. Clara did not move. Mr. Brennan. Sam. Sam. The name felt strange on her tongue. I need you to understand something. I cannot. She stopped, frustration tangling her words. I am not looking for any kind of arrangement. I just need to get to Helena. Sam went very still. Then he turned to face her, and his expression had changed. There was no amusement now, only a quiet seriousness that made Clara's breath catch. Mrs. Whitmore, he said softly, I noticed the wedding ring mark on your finger. I noticed how you flinched when I stepped toward you. And I noticed that you're shaking like a leaf even though it's 80 degrees out here. Clara's hand flew to her bare ring finger. She had not realized the mark was still visible. I don't know what happened to you, Sam continued, and I ain't gonna ask. But I want you to hear me when I say this. You are safe. I am offering you a place to sleep and a ride back to town. Nothing more. Do you understand? Something cracked inside Clara's chest. It might have been the wall she had built around herself. It might have been hope. Yes, she whispered. I understand. Good. Sam nodded once, then went back to tending the horses. We'll be at the ranch before sunset. Mrs. Santos will have supper ready, and she makes the best tamales this side of the Missouri. King. They spoke little during the rest of the journey, but the silence was not uncomfortable. Clara found herself watching Sam as he drove the wagon, noting the easy way he handled the reins, the gentle commands he gave to the horses. He was nothing like Thomas. The thought surfaced unbidden, and Clara pushed it away. It was too soon to make comparisons, too dangerous to let her guard down. She had trusted once before, and it had nearly destroyed her. The ranch came into view as the sun was painting the sky orange and gold. Clara had expected something rough and primitive, but what she saw surprised her. The main house was a sturdy log structure, with glass windows and a covered porch. A large barn stood nearby, and she could see horses in a corral, their coats gleaming in the evening light. A dog came bounding toward the wagon, barking joyfully. It was a medium-sized creature, with a golden coat and a tail that wagged so hard its whole body wiggled. "That's Biscuit," Sam said, a smile softening his features. "Don't let her fool you. She thinks she's a fearsome guard dog." Despite everything, Clara felt her lips twitch. "She's terrifying. Absolutely vicious." Sam brought the wagon to a stop and jumped down. Biscuit immediately began dancing around his feet, and he scratched her ears affectionately. "Yes, I missed you too, girl. Yes, I did." An older man emerged from the barn, moving with the slightly bowed gait of someone who had spent a lifetime in the saddle. His skin was dark, his hair gray and close-cropped, and he regarded Clara with sharp, assessing eyes. "Zeke," Sam called out. "We got a guest. This is Mrs. Whitmore. She accidentally climbed aboard my wagon in Billings, thinking it was headed to Helena." The man Zeke let out a low whistle. "That's a new one." "I know." Sam helped Clara down from the wagon, his hands careful and brief on her waist. "Can you let Mrs. Santos know we'll need supper for 3 and a guest room made up?" "Already on it." Zeke tipped his hat to Clara. "Ma'am, welcome to the Brennan Ranch." Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. The interior of the ranch house was clean and surprisingly comfortable. Clara noticed books on a shelf, a braided rug on the floor, curtains at the windows. Someone had made this place a home. A woman appeared from the back of the house, wiping her hands on an apron. She was perhaps 45, with dark hair streaked with silver and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "You must be Mrs. Whitmore," she said warmly. "I'm Maria Santos. You look exhausted, pobrecita. When did you last eat?" Clara tried to remember. "This morning, I think. There was bread at the depot." "Bread." Maria made a disapproving sound. "Sit down. I'll bring you something proper." Before Clara could protest, she was being guided to a chair at the kitchen table, and a plate of food was appearing before her: beans, rice, shredded beef wrapped in soft tortillas, and those tamales Sam had mentioned. The smell made her stomach clench with sudden, desperate hunger. "Eat," Maria commanded. "We can talk after." Clara ate. She tried to pace herself to remember the manners that had been drilled into her at finishing school, but the food was so good and she was so hungry that she found herself cleaning the plate far faster than was ladylike. When she looked up, both Maria and Sam were watching her. Maria's expression was soft with concern. Sam's was unreadable. "When did you last have a proper meal?" he asked quietly. Clara felt heat flood her cheeks. "It's been a while." "How long a while?" She did not answer. She could not explain that Thomas had controlled everything, including how much she ate. That meals had been rewards or punishments, depending on his mood. That even now, weeks after his death, she still felt guilty every time she took a second helping of anything. "Never mind," Sam said after a moment. "It don't matter. Maria, do we have any of that apple pie left?" "I'll check." Sam sat down across from Clara, folding his hands on the table. In the lamplight, she could see that his face was weathered by sun and wind, with fine lines around his eyes and mouth. He was handsome, she realized, in a solid, dependable way. Not the sharp, elegant handsomeness Thomas had possessed, but something warmer. "Mrs. Whitmore." "Clara." The word came out before she could stop it. "Please." Mrs. Whitmore was... "I would rather just be Clara." Sam nodded slowly. "Clara, then. Can I ask what's waiting for you in Helena?" "A job." Clara wrapped her hands around the cup of coffee Maria had placed before her, letting the warmth seep into her cold fingers. "A nursing position at the hospital there. I have a letter of recommendation from a doctor in Boston." "You're a nurse?" "Trained at Massachusetts General Hospital." Clara lifted her chin slightly. "I worked in the surgical ward for 2 years before I..." She stopped. Before she married Thomas. Before she gave up everything she loved because he demanded it. "That's real useful out here," Sam said. "Doctors are scarce. Most folks rely on whoever knows the most about medicine, and that's usually not much." "Sam's right." Maria set a slice of pie in front of Clara. "The nearest doctor is in Bozeman, 20 miles away. When someone gets hurt or sick, we do what we can and pray." Clara thought of the medical bag still packed in her carpet bag. She had almost sold it in Boston. The instruments were worth good money, but something had stopped her. The last piece of who she used to be before Thomas had taken everything else. "I should tell you," she said slowly. "The position in Helena. It doesn't start for another month. I was going to find lodging there, settle in, learn the town before I began working." A month. Sam exchanged a glance with Maria that Clara could not interpret. "That's a long time to be paying for a room." "I have money." "Not enough." But Clara was not about to admit that to a stranger. Sam leaned back in his chair, studying her with those warm brown eyes. "Here's another option if you're willing to consider it. We could use someone with nursing skills around here. 2 of my ranch hands are getting on in years, and they're too stubborn to rest when they ought to. The nearest doctor is a day's ride away. If you wanted, you could stay here for the month, help out when needed, and we'd give you room and board. Then, when it's time, one of my men can take you to Helena." Clara stared at him. "You don't know me." "I know you're educated. I know you're running from something, and I know you flinch like someone who's been hit too many times." Sam's voice was matter-of-fact without pity. "Seems to me you could use a safe place to land while you figure out what comes next." "Why?" The question scraped out of Clara's throat. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Because someone did it for me once when I needed it, and because my mama taught me that kindness don't cost nothing but effort." Maria reached over and patted Clara's hand. "Think about it, mija. You don't have to decide tonight. Get some rest, and things will look clearer in the morning." The guest room was small but clean, with a rope bed covered in quilts that smelled of lavender. Clara sat on the edge of the mattress, too tired to sleep, her mind racing with everything that had happened. She had climbed aboard the wrong wagon. She was 40 miles from where she needed to be, and a stranger was offering her kindness with no strings attached. It did not make sense. Thomas had taught her that everything came with a price. Every smile, every gentle word, every moment of peace, all of it would be paid for later in bruises and silence, and the slow erosion of her soul. But Sam Brennan had looked at her with those warm brown eyes and spoken to her like she was a person, not a possession. He had noticed her fear and stepped back instead of pressing forward. He had offered help and expected nothing in return. Clara did not know what to do with that. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "It's Maria," came the quiet voice. "May I come in?" "Yes." The older woman entered, carrying a pitcher of water and a stack of clean towels. She set them on the washstand, then turned to face Clara with an expression of gentle understanding. "I know that look," Maria said softly. "I wore it myself many years ago." Clara's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "The look of a woman who has learned to be afraid of the people who should have loved her." Maria sat down on the edge of the bed, keeping a careful distance. "My husband, God rest his soul, was a good man. But my father, he was not. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." Maria folded her hands in her lap. "I came to this country to escape him. I was 17 years old, and I had nothing but the clothes on my back and a determination to never let any man hurt me again." Clara felt tears pricking at her eyes. "Does it get easier?" "The fear," Maria considered the question. "It fades with time. It never disappears completely, but you learn to recognize when it's warning you of real danger and when it's just echoes." "Echoes," Clara repeated softly. "That's a good word for it." "Mr. Sam is a good man," Maria continued. "He saved me when my husband died, and I had nowhere to go. He gave me work, a home, a purpose. He has never raised a hand or his voice to me. He treats everyone who works here like family." She paused. "I am not saying you should trust him immediately. Trust is earned. But I am saying he is safe. You can rest here." Clara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Maria rose and moved toward the door. Then she stopped, looking back over her shoulder. "The worst is behind you, mija. Whatever he did to you, it is over now. You survived. That is what matters." After she left, Clara undressed and slipped beneath the quilts. The mattress was firmer than she was used to, the pillow stuffed with something that crinkled softly when she moved her head. She thought about Sam's offer. A month of safety. A month to heal. A month to remember who she was before Thomas had tried to destroy her. It was terrifying. And tempting. Clara closed her eyes and did something she had not done in years. She prayed. She woke to the sound of a rooster crowing and voices outside. For one terrible moment, she did not know where she was, and her heart seized with familiar panic. Then she remembered. Montana. The ranch. The wrong wagon. Sam. Clara dressed quickly in her traveling clothes, the only ones she owned, and braided her hair. When she stepped out into the main room, she found Sam, already awake, standing by the window with a cup of coffee in his hands. He turned when she entered, and his face brightened. "Morning, Clara. Coffee?" She accepted the cup he poured, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. "Thank you. For everything. The room, the meal, Like I said, it's nothing. It's not nothing to me." Sam studied her over the rim of his cup. In the morning light, she could see the stubble on his jaw, the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders. He looked solid and real, and utterly different from everything she had known. "Did you think about my offer?" he asked. Clara took a breath. "I did." And she met his eyes, searching for any hint of deception, any shadow of the cruelty she had learned to recognize. She found nothing but patience and a quiet steadiness that made something loosen in her chest. "I accept," she said, "on one condition." "Name it." "I work for my keep. I'm not a charity case. If I stay here, I contribute. Nursing, cooking, whatever is needed. I earn my room and board." Sam's mouth curved into a slow smile. "That's more than fair. Welcome to the Brennan Ranch, Clara Whitmore." He extended his hand. Clara hesitated for only a moment before she took it. His grip was firm but gentle, his palm rough with calluses. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Sam said, and there was a hint of humor in his voice. "Wait till you meet the rest of the folks around here. My sister Ruth is going to have about 1,000 questions, and Zeke has opinions about everything." Despite herself, Clara felt her lips twitch. "I think I can handle it." "I reckon you can." Sam released her hand and reached for his hat. "I've got to check on a mare who's been favoring her leg. Maria will show you around, help you get settled. If you need anything at all, you just ask." He tipped his hat to her and walked out the door, Biscuit scrambling to follow at his heels. Clara stood alone in the quiet kitchen, the coffee warming her hands, the morning sun streaming through the windows. She had climbed aboard the wrong wagon. She had ended up in a place she never planned to be. And for the first time in 3 years, she was not afraid. The first week passed faster than Clara expected. She fell into the rhythm of ranch life with surprising ease. Maria showed her where everything was kept, from the medical supplies in the pantry to the extra blankets in the cedar chest. Zeke treated her with respectful distance, tipping his hat whenever they crossed paths. And Sam. Sam was careful. He never stood too close. He never raised his voice. He always announced himself before entering a room. At first, Clara thought it was coincidence. By the 3rd day, she realized he was doing it deliberately, giving her space to breathe. It made something ache in her chest. "You're staring again," Maria said one morning, a knowing smile playing at her lips. Clara jerked her gaze away from the window where Sam was working with a young horse in the corral. "I was just thinking." Maria handed her a cup of coffee. "Thinking about what, I wonder?" "Nothing important." "If you say so, mija." Clara was saved from further interrogation by the sound of a wagon approaching. She tensed automatically, her body coiling tight before she could stop it. "Relax," Maria said gently. "That's just Ruth, Sam's sister." The woman who climbed down from the wagon was small and blonde with the same warm brown eyes as her brother. 2 children tumbled out after her, a boy of about 6, and a girl, perhaps 4, both shrieking with the boundless energy of youth. "Sam," Ruth called out. "I know you've got a woman staying here, and I had to see for myself." Sam walked over from the corral, wiping his hands on his trousers. "News travels fast. This is Bozeman, not Boston. Everything travels fast." Ruth turned her sharp gaze to Clara, who had stepped onto the porch. "So, you're the one who climbed into the wrong wagon." Clara's cheeks heated. "I'm afraid so." "Well." Ruth marched up the porch steps and stopped directly in front of her. "I'm Ruth Hawkins. That's my husband Thomas's wagon you just admired. And those 2 wild creatures are my children, William and little Sarah." "Clara Whitmore." She extended her hand and Ruth shook it firmly. "Whitmore." Ruth's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're a widow," Sam said. "Yes." "Recent. 3 months." Ruth studied her for a long moment, and Clara had the uncomfortable feeling of being weighed and measured. Then Ruth's expression softened. "You look tired," she said simply. "Like you haven't rested properly in years. Come inside. Maria's coffee is terrible, but I brought some proper tea from the store." "My coffee is not terrible," Maria protested as they all filed into the kitchen. "It's thick enough to patch a roof, Maria. That's not coffee. That's tar." Clara found herself sitting at the kitchen table, while Ruth bustled about preparing tea and setting out cookies she had brought from town. The children had already disappeared outside, their laughter floating through the open windows. "So," Ruth said, settling into the chair across from Clara. "Tell me everything." "Ruth." Sam's voice carried a warning. "She just got here. Give her some space." "I'm being friendly, Sam. There's a difference." Ruth turned back to Clara. "Ignore him. He thinks protecting people means wrapping them in cotton wool. Where are you from?" "Boston." "Boston. That's a long way. What brings you all the way out here?" Clara hesitated. "A nursing position in Helena. It starts next month." "A nurse?" Ruth's eyes lit up. "Oh, that's wonderful. We desperately need medical help around here. Dr. Whitfield in Bozeman is getting on in years, and he can't keep up with everyone who needs him." "I'm trained in surgical nursing," Clara said quietly. "I worked at Massachusetts General Hospital." "Surgical nursing." Ruth sat back, clearly impressed. "Well, well. Sam, you certainly found an interesting passenger." "I didn't find her. She found me." Sam was leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "Or rather, she found my wagon." "Best mistake she ever made, I'd say." Ruth grinned. "The food alone is worth staying for. Maria's tamales are legendary." Clara felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. Ruth was blunt and nosy, but there was no malice in her. She reminded Clara of a small, fierce bird, all energy and sharp observations. "Can I ask you something?" Ruth said suddenly. "Ruth?" Sam warned again. "It's a simple question." Ruth leaned forward. "Your husband, was he good to you?" The kitchen went silent. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "That's not," Sam started. "It's all right." Clara's voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly in her lap. "No, he wasn't." Ruth nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something she had already suspected. "Then I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad he's dead." "Ruth!" "What, I'm being honest." Ruth reached across the table and patted Clara's hand. "You're safe now. That's what matters. Welcome to Montana, Clara Whitmore. We look after our own here." Clara blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. "Thank you." The afternoon passed pleasantly, with Ruth chattering about town gossip and the children running in and out demanding attention. By the time the Hawkins family departed, Clara felt something she had not experienced in years. She felt welcomed. That night, the nightmares came. Clara woke gasping, her heart pounding, Thomas's face still vivid in her mind. She could feel his hands around her throat, could hear his voice hissing threats in her ear. The room was dark and unfamiliar, and for a terrible moment she did not know where she was. A soft knock at the door made her cry out. "Clara, it's Sam. Are you all right?" She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to slow her breathing. "I'm fine. Just a dream." A pause. "Can I come in?" Every instinct screamed no, but something stronger than fear made her whisper yes. Sam entered carrying a candle. He was dressed in just his trousers and an undershirt, his hair tousled from sleep. He stopped a careful distance from the bed. "Bad one?" he asked quietly. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. "Want to talk about it?" She shook her head. Sam set the candle on the dresser and lowered himself into the chair by the window. "Then I'll just sit here for a while, if that's all right." Clara stared at him. "You don't have to do that." "I know." He stretched out his legs, crossing them at the ankle. "But I'm awake now anyway. Might as well keep you company." "Sam." "Go back to sleep, Clara. I'll be here." She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him this was unnecessary, that she was fine, that she did not need anyone to watch over her. But the words stuck in her throat, and instead she found herself lying back down, her eyes fixed on Sam's silhouette in the candlelight. He did not move. He did not speak. He simply sat there, steady and solid, a quiet presence in the darkness. Clara slept. When she woke at dawn, the chair was empty. But there was a wildflower on the windowsill, its petals still wet with dew. The second week brought a crisis. Clara was helping Maria prepare lunch when Zeke burst through the door, his face tight with worry. "It's Miguel," he said. "Horse through him. He's hurt bad." Clara did not think. She grabbed her medical bag and ran. Miguel Santos. Maria's nephew, who worked as a ranch hand, was lying in the barn, his leg twisted at a wrong angle. His face was gray with pain, and sweat beaded on his forehead. "Don't move," Clara commanded, dropping to her knees beside him. "Where does it hurt?" "Leg," Miguel gasped. "And my ribs, maybe." Clara's hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking for injuries. She found the leg fracture immediately, a clean break below the knee. Thank God, not compound. His ribs were bruised but not broken. "I need splints," she said. "Something straight and rigid, and clean cloth for bandages." "I'll get them." Zeke disappeared. Sam crouched on Miguel's other side. "How bad, P? Broken leg. He'll need to stay off it for at least 6 weeks, but he'll heal." Clara looked up at Miguel. "This is going to hurt. I need to set the bone before it starts healing crooked." Miguel closed his eyes. "Do it." Sam, hold his shoulders. Keep him still. Sam moved into position, his hands firm on Miguel's shoulders. Clara took a breath, positioned her hands, and pulled. Miguel screamed. The bone shifted back into place with a sound that made Clara's stomach turn, even after years of surgical work. But when she checked her work, the alignment was good. "It's done," she said. "Zeke the splints." They worked quickly after that. Clara splinted the leg, wrapped it securely, and gave Miguel a dose of laudanum from her medical bag. By the time they moved him to the bunkhouse, he was drowsy, and the worst of the pain had faded. "You saved his leg," Sam said quietly, standing beside her as they watched Maria fuss over her nephew. "I set a bone. It's basic medicine. Not around here, it isn't. Most folks would have just wrapped it up and hoped for the best." Sam turned to face her. "You're good at this." "I should be. I trained for years." "Why'd you stop?" The question hung in the air between them. Clara looked away. "My husband didn't think it was appropriate for his wife to work." Sam was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Your husband was a fool." Clara laughed despite herself. It came out broken and rusty, like a door that hadn't been opened in years. But it was real. Sam smiled at her, that slow, warm smile that made her heart skip. "There it is," he said softly. "I was wondering what your laugh sounded like." Clara felt heat flood her cheeks. She had no idea what to say. They were saved by the sound of horses approaching. Sam's expression changed instantly, his body going tense. "Stay here," he said. He walked out of the bunkhouse and Clara moved to the doorway to watch. 3 riders were coming up the road, and even from a distance, she could see the glint of a badge on one man's chest. The lead rider dismounted smoothly. He was perhaps 40, with a weathered face and cold blue eyes that swept over the ranch with casual possession. When his gaze found Clara, something in it made her blood run cold. "Afternoon, Sam," the man said, not taking his eyes off Clara. "Deputy Holloway." Sam's voice was flat. "What brings you out here?" "Just checking on things. Heard you had a visitor." Holloway smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Wanted to make sure everything was in order." "Everything's fine. I'll be the judge of that." Holloway walked toward the bunkhouse, and Clara forced herself not to retreat as he approached. "Ma'am, I don't believe we've met. I'm Deputy Vincent Holloway." "Clara Whitmore." "Whitmore." Holloway's eyes narrowed. "Any relation to Thomas Whitmore of Boston?" Clara's heart stopped. "He was my husband." He's dead." Something flickered across Holloway's face. Surprise calculation. Something darker. "My condolences. Thomas and I had some business dealings a few years back, shipping concerns." Clara said nothing. She had not known Thomas had any connections to Montana. But then, there was so much about her husband she had never known. "Seems strange," Holloway continued. "A Boston widow ending up at a ranch in the middle of Montana. How'd that happen?" "She got on the wrong wagon," Sam said, stepping between them. "She's staying here until her nursing position in Helena starts." "Nursing position?" Holloway smiled again. "How fortunate. Well, Mrs. Whitmore, if you need anything while you're in our territory, you just let me know. I'm always happy to help a lady." "Thank you." Clara's voice was ice. Holloway tipped his hat. "I'll be seeing you around." He mounted his horse and rode away with his men, but Clara could feel his eyes on her long after he disappeared from view. "What was that about?" she asked. Sam's jaw was tight. "Holloway's been sniffing around my land for 2 years now. He works with some men in Helena who want to expand their cattle operations. They've been buying up ranches all over the valley. And he wants yours. He wants anything he can get his hands on." Sam turned to face her, his expression troubled. "Clara, you said your husband was Thomas Whitmore." "Yes." "Did he have any holdings out west? Any land or property?" Clara frowned. "I don't know. Thomas never discussed business with me." "Why?" Sam hesitated. It might be nothing. But Holloway recognized that name awful fast. And he doesn't do anything without a reason. That night, Clara could not sleep. She kept thinking about Holloway's cold eyes, about the way he had looked at her like she was something to be acquired. It was the same way Thomas had looked at her in the beginning, before she understood what that look meant. She got up and walked to the main room. A single lamp burned low, and she found Zeke sitting by the fireplace smoking a pipe. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." "Pull up a chair. Misery loves company." Clara sat down, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "Can I ask you something, Zeke?" "Ask away." "What do you know about Deputy Holloway?" Zeke's expression darkened. "More than I'd like. He came to this territory about 5 years ago. Started as a ranch hand, worked his way up to deputy, but he's got ambitions beyond wearing a badge." "What kind of ambitions?" "The kind that involves owning everything he can see." Zeke puffed on his pipe. "He's connected to some powerful men in Helena. Land speculators, railroad investors. They want to control the valley, and they're not particular about how they get it." Has he tried to buy Sam's ranch? Tried and failed. Sam won't sell. This land belonged to his father and his father's father before that. It's in his blood. Zeke studied her with those sharp assessing eyes. But you need to understand something, Mrs. Whitmore. When Holloway wants something and can't buy it, he finds other ways to take it. Clara shivered. Why are you telling me this? Because he looked at you today the same way he looks at land he wants to own. Zeke's voice was gentle but firm. You be careful around that man. And if he comes sniffing around again, you tell Sam. Or you tell me. Don't try to handle him alone. I won't. Zeke nodded, seemingly satisfied. Good. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's gonna be a long day. But sleep would not come. Clara lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions. What had Thomas's business dealings with Holloway been about? Why had Holloway recognized her husband's name so quickly? And what did any of it have to do with her? She thought about going through Thomas's papers, the ones she had brought with her from Boston. She had barely glanced at them, too eager to leave everything about her marriage behind. But maybe there was something in them, some clue about what Holloway knew. The next morning, she pulled out the leather satchel and began to sort through the documents. Most of it was what she expected: bank statements, business correspondence receipts from Thomas's various investments. But near the bottom, she found a deed to 500 acres of land in Montana Territory. Clara's hands began to shake. The land was located along the Gallatin River. The deed was dated 3 years ago, the same month she and Thomas had married, and it was in her name. Oh, God, she whispered. She did not understand. Thomas had never mentioned owning land in Montana. He had never mentioned anything about the West at all. But here, it was a legal document proving that she, Clara Ann Whitmore, owned property in the very territory where she had accidentally ended up. It could not be coincidence. Nothing about her arrival here was coincidence. But what did it mean? She was still sitting there, the deed clutched in her hands, when Sam knocked on her door. Clara Maria said you missed breakfast. Are you all right? I need to show you something. Sam entered, took one look at her face, and closed the door behind him. What's wrong? Clara handed him the deed. She watched his expression change as he read it. Confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like fear. This land, he said slowly. I know where this is. Where? It borders my ranch, on the north side. Sam looked up at her. Clara, this is the land Holloway has been trying to buy for years. It's the only piece that would connect his partner's holdings. Without it, they can't complete their expansion. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believe you. Sam set the deed down on the bed. But Holloway knows. That's why he was here yesterday. That's why he recognized your husband's name. What do I do? Nothing yet. We need to think about this, figure out what Holloway's next move will be. Sam's jaw tightened. But I want you to know something, Clara. Whatever happens, you're not facing this alone. You're under my protection now. And I don't let anyone hurt the people I care about. The people he cared about. Clara looked at him, this man who had shown her nothing but kindness since the moment she tumbled into his life, and felt something shift inside her chest. Why? She whispered. Why do you care what happens to me? Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Because you climbed into my wagon looking lost and scared, and you're still here. Because you laugh like you forgot how, and you saved Miguel's leg, and you look at the mountains like they're the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment I turned around and saw you standing there in the dust. Clara's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Sam? You don't have to say anything. He stepped back, giving her space again. I just wanted you to know. Whatever you decide to do, stay. Go sell the land. Keep it. I'll support you. but I'm not going to pretend I don't feel what I feel." He turned and walked out, leaving Clara standing alone with a deed to land she had never known she owned, and a heart that had suddenly terrifyingly begun to hope again. 3 days later, Holloway returned. This time, he came alone. Clara was in the garden with Maria when she saw him riding up the road. Her stomach clenched with dread. "Go inside," Maria said quietly. "I'll fetch Sam." "No." Clara straightened her spine. "I'll handle this." She walked toward the house, reaching the porch just as Holloway dismounted. He smiled when he saw her, that cold smile that made her skin crawl. "Mrs. Whitmore, just the woman I wanted to see." "Deputy Holloway, what can I do for you?" "I think you know." He climbed the porch steps, stopping just a little too close. "I've done some checking. Your husband owned some property around here. Property that now belongs to you." "I'm aware." "Then you're also aware that property is worth quite a bit of money. I have some associates who would be very interested in purchasing it. They're prepared to offer you a generous sum." "The land isn't for sale." Holloway's smile thinned. "Everything's for sale, Mrs. Whitmore. It's just a matter of finding the right price." "I said no." For a moment, something ugly flickered in Holloway's eyes. Then he smoothed his expression back into false pleasantness. "Think about it," he said. "A woman alone out here, no husband to protect her, no family to turn to. It's a dangerous situation. All kinds of things can happen." He reached out and touched a strand of her hair, and Clara flinched back like she'd been burned. "I'd hate for anything unfortunate to befall you." "Get away from her." Sam's voice cut through the air like a whip. He was striding toward them from the barn, his face thunderous. Holloway stepped back, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "Easy, Brennan. I was just having a friendly conversation with the lady." "The lady looks like she wants you gone. So does this lady." Maria had appeared in the doorway, a shotgun cradled in her arms. Holloway laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fine, I'll leave. But think about what I said, Mrs. Whitmore. Montana can be an unforgiving place for people who make the wrong enemies." He mounted his horse and rode away without looking back. Sam reached the porch in 3 long strides. "Are you all right? Did he touch you?" "I'm fine." Clara's voice was steadier than she felt. "He wants my land. He made it clear he'll do whatever it takes to get it." "Over my dead body." Sam's hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "That man comes near you again, I'll—" "Sam." Clara reached out and touched his arm, and he went still. "I'm not running, not anymore. Whatever he throws at me, I'll face it." Sam looked at her, his eyes fierce with emotion. "You won't face it alone." "I know." She managed a small smile. "I know." That night they sat together on the porch, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Biscuit lay at their feet, snoring softly, and the night was full of cricket song and the distant lowing of cattle. "I never thanked you properly," Clara said, "for everything." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She turned to face him. "When I climbed into your wagon, I was running. From my past, from my pain, from everything I had been. I had no plan except to get as far away as possible and hope I could outrun the fear. And now—" Clara took a breath. "Now I'm starting to think maybe I don't need to run anymore. Maybe I've already found the place I was looking for." Sam reached over and took her hand. His fingers were warm and calloused and infinitely gentle. "Clara," he said softly, "I meant what I said before. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. But if you're asking whether I want you to stay, I'm asking." He raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles so tenderly it made her heart ache. "Stay," he whispered. "Stay and let me show you what love is supposed to feel like. Stay and build something with me. Stay and let me spend the rest of my life making you smile." Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks, but for the first time in years, they were not tears of pain. "Yes," she said. "Yes." And when Sam leaned in and kissed her soft and sweet and full of promise, Clara finally understood what it meant to come home. The kiss changed everything and nothing. Clara woke the next morning with Sam's words still echoing in her heart, but the world outside did not care about tender moments or whispered promises. Holloway's threat hung over the ranch like a gathering storm, and everyone could feel it coming. "He'll make his move soon," Zeke said at breakfast, his voice grim. "A man like Holloway don't issue warnings unless he's ready to follow through." Sam pushed his plate away. "Then we'll be ready for him." "How?" Clara asked. "He's the deputy. He has the law on his side." "The law and Holloway ain't exactly the same thing." Sam stood his jaw set. "I'm riding into Bozeman today. Need to talk to some folks, see where people stand." "I'm coming with you." "Clara, I'm coming." She met his eyes steadily. "This is my fight too. My land. My decision." Sam looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. "All right, but you stay close to me." The ride into Bozeman took 3 hours, and Clara spent most of it turning things over in her mind. Thomas had bought that land 3 years ago, the same month they married. He had put it in her name. Why Thomas had never done anything without a reason, and that reason was never kindness. "You're thinking too loud," Sam said. "I'm trying to understand why Thomas bought that land. Why he put it in my name instead of his own. Maybe he was protecting his assets. If he had debts, putting property in your name would keep creditors from seizing it." Clara shook her head. Thomas didn't have debts. He had money, plenty of it, and he was careful about where it went. Then maybe he was planning something he didn't get to finish before he died. That thought sent a chill down Clara's spine. What had Thomas been planning? And did Holloway know Bozeman was busier than Clara expected? The streets were full of wagons and horses, and people moved with the purposeful energy of a growing town. Sam guided them to a building with a sign that read, "Hawkins General Store." Ruth looked up when they entered, and her expression immediately sharpened. "What happened?" "Holloway came to the ranch again," Sam said. "He threatened Clara." "That snake!" Ruth's hands clenched into fists. "What did he say?" Clara repeated the conversation, watching Ruth's face grow darker with every word. When she finished, Ruth slammed her palm on the counter. "He can't get away with this. There has to be something we can do." "That's why we're here." Sam looked around the store. "Where's Thomas?" "In the back doing inventory. I'll get him." Ruth's husband turned out to be a quiet, solid man with thoughtful eyes and calloused hands. He listened to Sam's account without interrupting, then rubbed his chin slowly. "Holloway's got powerful friends," Thomas Hawkins said. "But he's also got enemies. Plenty of folks around here don't like the way he operates." "We need to know who those folks are," Sam said. "And we need to know what Holloway's planning." "I'll ask around." Discreetly. Thomas exchanged a glance with his wife. "But Sam, you need to be careful. Holloway doesn't fight fair. If he can't get what he wants through threats, he'll find another way." "What kind of other way?" Thomas hesitated. "There's been talk. Cattle going missing from ranches that won't sell. Barns burning down. Accidents happening to people who ask too many questions." Clara felt ice settle in her stomach. "You think he'd hurt someone?" "I think he'd do whatever it takes." Thomas's voice was heavy. "And I think he's done it before." They left the store with more questions than answers. Clara's mind was racing, trying to piece together everything she knew about Thomas, about the land, about Holloway's connection to her dead husband. "I need to find out more about Thomas's business dealings," she said. "There has to be records somewhere, papers, something that explains why he bought that land." "We can check with the Territorial Land Office," Sam suggested. "They keep records of all property transactions." "Then let's go." The land office was a small building near the courthouse, staffed by a nervous-looking clerk who seemed startled by visitors. When Clara explained what she was looking for, he disappeared into a back room and emerged 20 minutes later with a stack of documents. "This is everything we have on the Whitmore property," he said, setting the papers on the counter. Purchase records, survey maps, tax assessments. Clara began sorting through the documents, her heart pounding. Most of it was routine legal descriptions, payment records, official stamps. But near the bottom of the stack she found something that made her blood run cold. A letter, addressed to Thomas Whitmore, from Vincent Holloway. "Sam," she whispered, "look at this." The letter was dated 2 years ago, and it outlined a business arrangement between Thomas and Holloway's associates. The language was formal, full of legal terms and carefully worded phrases, but the meaning was clear. Thomas had agreed to purchase land in Montana as part of a larger scheme to control the valley's water rights. The land Clara now owned was the keystone of the entire plan. They were partners. Sam said, his voice tight. Your husband and Holloway. They were working together. But Thomas died before they could finish. Clara's hands were shaking. And now the land belongs to me. That's why Holloway wants it so badly. Without it, their whole plan falls apart. And he can't just take it. You're the legal owner. So he'll try to force me to sell. Or... Clara couldn't finish the sentence. Sam took the letter from her hands and folded it carefully. This changes things. If we can prove Holloway's been involved in illegal land schemes, we can get him removed from his position, maybe even arrested. But who would we take it to? He's the law around here. The territorial marshal in Helena. He's got jurisdiction over local deputies. Sam's jaw was set. We need to get this information to him. And we need to do it before Holloway figures out what we know. They rode back to the ranch as fast as the horses could carry them. Clara's mind was spinning with everything she had learned. Thomas had been planning to use her, had been using her from the very beginning. The marriage, the property in her name, all of it had been part of a scheme she knew nothing about. And now she was at the center of it, whether she wanted to be or not. They were still half a mile from the ranch when they saw the smoke. No! Sam breathed. He kicked his horse into a gallop, and Clara followed her heart in her throat. As they crested the hill, she could see flames leaping from the barn and figures running in the chaos. Sam! Zeke's voice carried across the distance. They hit us. Riders came through, set the barn on fire. Sam leaped from his horse before it had fully stopped. Is everyone all right? Maria's got a bump on her head, but she'll live. Miguel tried to stop them, but with his leg... Zeke's face was grim. They took some cattle, too. Maybe 30 head. Clara ran to where Maria was sitting against the fence, a cloth pressed to her forehead. Let me see. It's nothing, mija. Just a scratch. Let me see anyway. Clara gently moved the cloth aside. The cut was shallow, but bleeding freely. You need stitches. Later. Help them with the fire first. For the next 2 hours they fought to contain the blaze. The barn was a loss. The flames had spread too fast, but they managed to save the horses and keep the fire from reaching the house. By the time the last embers died down, everyone was exhausted, covered in soot, and struggling to process what had happened. It was Holloway's men, Zeke said, his voice raw from smoke. I recognize 2 of them, same ones who ride with him. Can you prove it? Clara asked. Prove it. Zeke laughed bitterly. To who Holloway's the deputy? His word against ours. Sam had been silent through all of this, staring at the smoldering remains of his barn. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. He burned my barn. He stole my cattle. He hurt Maria. He turned to face Clara, and she saw something in his eyes that frightened her. This ends now. Sam, wait. No more waiting. No more hoping he'll back off. I'm going to find Holloway, and I'm going to end this. You can't. Clara grabbed his arm. That's exactly what he wants. If you go after him, he can claim self-defense. He can kill you and call it justified. Then what do you suggest? Let him burn down everything I've built. Let him threaten the people I love until there's nothing left. We take the evidence to Helena, to the marshal. We do this the right way. The right way. Sam's voice cracked. Clara, look around you. The right way doesn't work against men like Holloway. Then we find another way, together. She stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. You told me I wasn't facing this alone. Neither are you. But if you ride out there half-cocked and get yourself killed, what happens to the ranch, to Maria and Zeke, to me? Sam's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked younger than his years, vulnerable, in a way Clara had never seen. I can't lose everything again, he whispered. Not again. You won't. Clara reached up and cupped his face in her hands. But we have to be smart about this. We have to think. She's right, boss. Zeke had come up behind them. Holloway wants you to make a mistake. Don't give him the satisfaction. Sam closed his eyes, taking a shuddering breath. When he opened them again, some of the dangerous fire had faded. All right, he said quietly. We do it your way. But if he comes at us again, then we'll be ready. Clara released him and turned to the others. Right now we need to tend to the wounded and figure out what we've lost. Tomorrow we make a plan. That night, Clara sat by Sam's bed, stitching the cut on his arm he had gotten fighting the fire. He watched her work in silence, his expression unreadable. You want to tell me about it? She asked softly. About what you lost before. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Her name was Elizabeth. We were engaged. She was kind and gentle, and she loved this land almost as much as I did. Clara's hand stilled. What happened? Fever. It swept through the territory 5 years ago, killed dozens of people. I was away buying cattle when it hit. By the time I got back, she was already sick. She died 3 days later. Sam, I'm so sorry. I couldn't save her. His voice broke. I tried everything, every remedy, every prayer. But she slipped away and there was nothing I could do. He looked at Clara, his eyes bright with unshed tears. That's why I couldn't stand back and do nothing tonight. Because I know what it feels like to lose everything while you're helpless to stop it. Clara set down her needle and thread. Without thinking, she pulled up her sleeve, revealing the scars that crisscrossed her forearm. Cigarette burns, knife marks, the map of 3 years of hell. Sam's breath caught. Clara? He did this because I smiled at a shopkeeper, and this because dinner was cold, and this because I cried when he hit me. Her voice was steady, though her heart was racing. I know what it feels like to be helpless too, Sam. I lived it every day for 3 years. Sam reached out and gently took her scarred arm, cradling it like something precious. He can't hurt you anymore. No, he can't. Clara met his eyes. And Holloway won't either, because we're not helpless anymore. We have each other. Sam pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as if he could shield her from every pain she had ever known. Clara buried her face in his chest, breathing in the smell of smoke and sweat, and something underneath that was uniquely him. I love you, he murmured into her hair. God help me. I know it's too fast, and I know you've been hurt. But I love you, Clara Whitmore. I love you too. The words came easily, naturally, as if she had been waiting her whole life to say them to someone who deserved them. And it's not too fast. It's exactly right. They held each other as the night deepened around them, two broken people finding wholeness in each other's arms. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Clara was helping Maria prepare breakfast when she heard horses approaching, a lot of them. She tensed, reaching for the rifle Sam had taught her to use, but then she heard Ruth's voice calling out. Sam, Clara, get out here. There were at least a dozen people in the yard. Ruth and Thomas, of course, but also neighbors. Clara had only met in passing the Hendersons from the next valley, the widow Morrison and her 3 grown sons, old Mr. Patterson, who ran the livery stable in Bozeman. What's going on? Sam asked, stepping onto the porch. We heard about the fire. Thomas Hawkins said. And we heard about Holloway's threats. Word travels fast, Ruth added. Everyone knows what he's been doing, Sam. The intimidation, the cattle thefts, the accidents. People are tired of being scared. Mrs. Morrison stepped forward. My husband died in an accident 2 years ago. Everyone said he fell from his horse, but I never believed it. He'd been refusing to sell our land to Holloway's people. Her voice trembled with suppressed fury. If you're planning to stand up to him, we want to help. One by one, the neighbors voiced their support. Stories of harassment threats, mysterious losses. A picture emerged of a territory held hostage by fear, waiting for someone to take the first stand. We're sending the evidence to Helena, Clara said. To the territorial marshal. We need witnesses, people willing to testify about what Holloway's done. You'll have them, Mr. Patterson said firmly. Every one of us has a story. It's time they were heard. Sam looked at the gathered crowd, and Clara saw something shift in his expression. The isolation of the past days lifted, replaced by something that looked like hope. Then we do this together, he said. All of us. We build a case so strong the marshal has no choice but to act. And if Holloway comes for us before then? Henderson asked. Sam's jaw tightened. Then we defend ourselves, together, the way neighbors should. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Clara felt tears prick her eyes as she watched these people, strangers a month ago, coming together to fight for something bigger than themselves. This was community. This was strength. This was what she had been searching for without knowing it. And standing beside Sam, surrounded by people willing to stand up to tyranny, Clara finally understood what it meant to belong. The letter to the territorial marshal went out the next morning. Thomas Hawkins rode to Helena himself, carrying every piece of evidence they had gathered. The letter connecting Holloway to Thomas Whitmore witness statements from a dozen families' records of suspicious property transfers. It would take a week for an answer, maybe longer. Until then, they had to wait. Holloway did not wait. 3 days after the fire, Clara was in Bozeman with Ruth purchasing supplies for the ranch. The general store was crowded, and Clara felt eyes on her the moment she walked through the door. Whispers followed her down the aisles, sharp glances that made her skin prickle. Ignore them, Ruth murmured. Small-town gossip. It'll pass. But it did not pass. A woman Clara did not recognize stepped directly into her path. She was perhaps 50, with a pinched face and cold eyes. You're the Whitmore widow, aren't you? Clara straightened her spine. I am. I heard about you. The woman's lip curled. Married to a criminal. Came here to steal land that doesn't belong to you. And now you've got Sam Brennan wrapped around your finger. That's not true? Isn't it? The woman stepped closer. Deputy Holloway told us all about your husband's schemes, how he cheated honest people out of their money, how he used that land to control water rights that should belong to everyone. She jabbed a finger at Clara's chest. You think we want your kind here? You think we'll let you destroy our valley the way your husband planned? Clara's face burned. I had nothing to do with my husband's business dealings. I didn't even know about the land until... Convenient, isn't it? The woman laughed harshly. The innocent widow who knows nothing. Do you take us for fools? That's enough. Ruth pushed between them, her small frame bristling with fury. You don't know what you're talking about, Mrs. Garrett. Clara Whitmore is a victim of her husband, not his accomplice. So she says. But why should we believe her? Because I believe her. Ruth's voice rang through the suddenly quiet store. And so does my brother. And so do the Henderson family, and the Morrisons, and everyone else who's been terrorized by Holloway's thugs for the past 3 years. Mrs. Garrett's eyes narrowed. Holloway is the law around here. He keeps us safe. He keeps you scared. There's a difference. Ruth took Clara's arm. Come on, we're leaving. They walked out of the store with their heads held high, but Clara's hands were shaking. Once they were in the wagon, she allowed herself to breathe. Holloway's been spreading lies, Ruth said grimly. trying to turn the town against you before the marshal can act. It's working. Only on people who are already on his side. Ruth snapped the reins and the wagon lurched into motion. The others know the truth. They've seen what kind of man he is. But what if they don't believe me? What if the marshal doesn't believe me? Ruth reached over and squeezed her hand. Then we keep fighting. That's all we can do. Sam was waiting on the porch when they returned. One look at Clara's face told him everything. What happened? Holloway's poisoning the town against me. Clara climbed down from the wagon, her legs unsteady. He told everyone about Thomas, about the land scheme. He's making me out to be the villain. Sam's jaw tightened. That snake! It gets worse. Ruth jumped down beside them. Mrs. Garrett was practically spitting venom. If Holloway's got the respectable ladies on his side, it won't be long before the whole town turns. Let them turn. Sam put his arm around Clara's shoulders. We know the truth. The marshal will know it too, once he sees the evidence. And if he doesn't come in time... Sam's face hardened. Then we deal with Holloway ourselves. That night, Clara could not sleep. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, Mrs. Garrett's words echoing in her mind. Your husband's schemes, your kind. Do you take us for fools? She had spent 3 years being told she was worthless, that she was nothing without Thomas, that everything she had belonged to him. Now, even in death, he was still controlling her life. His crimes were being laid at her feet. His plans were destroying her future. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Clara, you awake? She opened the door to find Sam standing there, worry etched in his features. I couldn't sleep either, he admitted. Can we talk? They sat together on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the cool night air. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I've been thinking, Sam finally said, about what Mrs. Garrett said, about what Holloway's telling people. And I realized something. He turned to face her, his eyes intent. I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care if the whole territory believes Holloway's lies. I know who you are, Clara. I know what you've been through. And nothing anyone says is going to change how I feel about you. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Sam, I mean it. He took her hands in his. When Elizabeth died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. I thought that part of me was gone forever. But then you came along and suddenly I'm feeling things I didn't think I was capable of anymore. I feel the same way. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. I never thought I'd trust anyone again. I never thought I'd want to. But with you... With me. With you, I feel safe. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. She reached up and touched his face. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever Holloway does, I want you to know that. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Sam leaned forward and kissed her soft and tender. We're going to get through this, he murmured against her lips. Together. I promise. The next morning brought chaos. Clara was helping Maria with breakfast when Zeke burst through the door, his face ashen. Riders coming, a lot of them, and Holloway's leading the charge. Sam grabbed his rifle and strode to the porch. Clara followed, her heart hammering. There were at least 20 men approaching Holloway at the front. Behind him, Clara recognized some of the townspeople men who had nodded politely at her in the storewomen she had seen at church. Their faces were hard now, closed off. Holloway dismounted and walked toward the house, a smile playing at his lips. Morning, Brennan, Mrs. Whitmore. He tipped his hat mockingly. Beautiful day, isn't it? What do you want, Holloway? Justice. Holloway's smile widened. These good people have some concerns about the company you've been keeping. They want to hear Mrs. Whitmore explain herself. She doesn't have to explain anything to you. Maybe not to me. Holloway gestured to the crowd behind him. But these are her neighbors, the people she's going to live among if she stays. Don't they deserve to know the truth about who she is, about what her husband did? Clara stepped forward before Sam could stop her. You want the truth? Deputy Holloway, fine. I'll tell you the truth. The crowd shifted, murmuring. Holloway's smile flickered just for a moment. My husband was a monster, Clara said, her voice carrying across the yard. He bought that land as part of a scheme I knew nothing about. He put it in my name without telling me why. And for 3 years he beat me, burned me, and made my life a living hell. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some faces softened. Others remained skeptical. I came to Montana to escape him. To start over. I climbed on the wrong wagon and ended up here by accident. But it wasn't an accident that I stayed. I stayed because I found something here I never had before. Kindness. Community. People who judged me for who I am, not who my husband was. She pointed at Holloway. This man wants my land. Not because of justice, but because it's the key to his scheme, the same scheme my husband was part of. He burned Sam's barn. He stole his cattle. He's been terrorizing this valley for years, and you all know it. That's a lie. Holloway's face had gone red. Is it? Clara pulled the letter from her pocket. She had kept a copy. Then explain this. A letter from you to my husband dated 2 years ago outlining your partnership, your plan to control the water rights in this valley, your scheme to force everyone else out. She held it up and the crowd pressed forward trying to see. She's making it up, Holloway snarled. That letter is a forgery. Then you won't mind when the territorial marshal examines it, Sam said quietly, along with all the other evidence we've sent him. The color drained from Holloway's face. You sent evidence to Helena. 3 days ago. Thomas Hawkins delivered it personally. Sam stepped forward, his voice hardening. It's over, Holloway. The marshal knows everything. Your scheme, your partners, your crimes. By this time next week there'll be a warrant for your arrest. For a long moment, Holloway stood frozen. Then his face twisted into something ugly. You think you've won? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have no idea what you're dealing with. The men I work for, they don't lose, they don't give up, and they don't forgive. Then let them come. Sam's voice was steel. We'll be ready. Holloway's hand moved toward his gun. Half a dozen rifles clicked behind Sam as Zeke Miguel and the ranch hands raised their weapons. I wouldn't, Zeke said calmly, unless you want to find out how fast an old man can still shoot. The tension stretched like a wire about to snap. Then slowly, Holloway lowered his hand. This isn't over, he said. Not by a long shot. He turned and walked back to his horse, mounting in one smooth motion. But before he rode away, he looked directly at Clara. You should have sold when you had the chance, Mrs. Whitmore. Now you'll pay for your stubbornness. You and everyone who stands with you. He kicked his horse into motion, and his men followed. The townspeople who had come with him lingered, uncertain. Mrs. Morrison stepped forward. I believe her. Holloway's been lying to us all along. My husband didn't fall from his horse. Another woman said, her voice trembling. I always knew it. He was killed because he wouldn't sell. One by one, people began to speak. Stories of intimidation, of threats, of mysterious accidents that weren't accidents at all. The tide was turning, and Clara could see it in their faces. We were afraid, Mr. Henderson said heavily. Holloway had power, and we didn't know who to trust. But if the marshal is coming, if there's really going to be justice, there will be, Sam said firmly. But we have to stand together. All of us. No more fear. No more silence. The crowd began to disperse, but many stopped to shake Sam's hand, to nod at Clara, to offer quiet words of support. By the time the last wagon disappeared down the road, Clara was trembling with exhaustion and relief. You did it, Sam said softly. You stood up to him. We did it. Clara leaned against him, letting his strength support her. All of us. But even as she said the words, a cold knot of fear remained in her stomach. Holloway had promised revenge, and she had learned long ago that men like him kept their promises. The attack came 3 nights later. Clara woke to the sound of gunfire and screaming. She grabbed the rifle Sam had given her and ran outside. The yard was chaos. Masked riders were everywhere, firing at the house, at the barn, at anything that moved. She saw Zeke go down, clutching his shoulder. She saw Maria dragging Miguel toward the house, his splinted leg dragging behind him. "Clara, get down!" Sam tackled her just as a bullet whizzed past her head. They hit the ground hard, and he covered her body with his own. "How many?" Clara gasped. "Too many. At least a dozen." Sam's face was grim. "They're trying to burn us out." Clara looked towards the house and saw flames licking at the porch. Everything they had worked for, everything they had built going up in smoke. "No!" She pushed Sam off and staggered to her feet. "No! Clara, wait!" But she was already running, not away from the fire, but toward the barn where the water barrels were kept. If she could just get there, if she could just... A rider cut her off. He raised his gun, and Clara froze. Then a shot rang out, and the rider fell from his horse. Sam stood behind her, smoke curling from his rifle barrel. "I told you to wait. Since when do I listen?" Despite everything, he almost smiled. "Fair point. Now help me put out this fire." They fought together through the night. Clara did not know how many times she emptied water buckets onto flames, how many bandages she wrapped around wounds, how many prayers she whispered to a God she had almost stopped believing in. But when dawn finally broke, they were still standing. The house was damaged, but not destroyed. The new barn Sam had been building was gone, reduced to ash and embers. Zeke had taken a bullet to the shoulder but would live. Miguel had reopened his leg wound and was in agony, but they were alive, all of them. "It's over," Sam said hoarsely, his face streaked with soot. "It has to be over." "Not yet." Clara was staring at the road where a cloud of dust was approaching. Her heart seized. More riders, more attackers. They did not have the strength to fight again. But as the dust settled, she saw something that made her knees go weak with relief. A marshal's badge, and behind the marshal, a dozen armed men. "Samuel Brennan." The marshal dismounted, his face stern. "I'm Marshal James Cooper from Helena. We received your evidence and came as fast as we could." He looked at the destruction around him. "Looks like we weren't fast enough." "Holloway," Sam said. "He did this. His men." "I know. We caught 3 of them fleeing on the road. They're already talking." The marshal's jaw tightened. "Deputy Holloway is under arrest. We picked him up at his house an hour ago. He's on his way to Helena in chains." Clara felt her legs give way. Sam caught her, holding her upright. "It's over," he murmured. "Clara, it's really over." But even as relief flooded through her, she remembered Holloway's words. "The men I work for, they don't lose. They don't give up." Holloway might be in chains, but his partners were still out there, and they would not forgive what had happened here. "What about the men in Helena?" Clara asked the marshal. "The ones Holloway was working with." Marshal Cooper's expression darkened. "We're investigating. With Holloway's testimony, and he will testify if he knows what's good for him, we should be able to bring them all down. And if he doesn't testify, then we'll find another way." The marshal looked at her steadily. "You've got courage, Mrs. Whitmore. What you did here, standing up to Holloway, gathering evidence that took guts. The territory owes you a debt." Clara shook her head. "I just wanted to be free, to live my life without fear." "Well, you've earned that right." Marshal Cooper tipped his hat. "We'll be in touch about the trial. Until then, try to get some rest. You've been through hell." As the marshal rode away with his men, Clara turned to Sam. They stood in the middle of the destruction, surrounded by ash and debris, exhausted beyond words. "What do we do now?" she asked. Sam took her hands, his grip warm and steady despite everything. "We rebuild. We heal. We keep going. Together. Always together." He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I love you, Clara Whitmore. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." Clara closed her eyes and let herself believe for the first time that the nightmare was truly ending. That something beautiful could rise from the ashes. That love was stronger than fear. "I love you too," she whispered. "Now let's go home." The weeks that followed were the hardest Clara had ever known. Not because of danger or fear, but because of hope. Hope was terrifying. Hope meant believing that the future could be different, that the past did not have to define her forever. And after years of having hope beaten out of her, learning to feel it again was almost as painful as the wounds had been. But she was not alone. Sam was there every morning when she woke, and every night when she fell asleep. He did not push, did not demand, did not try to fix her. He simply stayed steady and constant, a rock she could lean against when the weight became too heavy. "You're thinking again," he said one morning, watching her over his coffee cup. "I'm always thinking." "About what this time?" Clara looked at him. This man who had changed everything without even trying. About how strange it is. "A month ago I was running. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else." Sam's lips curved into that slow smile she had come to love. Montana has a way of doing that to people. "It's not Montana." She reached across the table and took his hand. "It's you." The rebuilding went faster than anyone expected. Word had spread about what happened at the Brennan Ranch, about how they had stood against Holloway and won. Neighbors who had been strangers became friends. Families who had kept to themselves started showing up with tools, with lumber, with food. "I've never seen anything like it," Zeke said, watching a group of men raise the frame for the new barn. His arm was in a sling, but his eyes were bright. "Folks around here usually keep their distance, but you two, you changed something." "We didn't do anything," Clara protested. "You stood up. That's everything." Zeke shook his head slowly. "Most people around here, they've been scared for so long they forgot what courage looks like. You reminded them." Ruth arrived that afternoon with baskets of food and news from town. "Holloway's trial is set for next month," she announced, settling into a kitchen chair. "The prosecutor says he's got enough evidence to put him away for 20 years, maybe more." "And his partners?" Sam asked. "2 of them were arrested yesterday. The rest are running scared." Ruth's smile was fierce. "The whole scheme is falling apart. By this time next year, nobody will even remember their names." Clara felt something loosen in her chest. It was really over. The nightmare that had followed her from Boston, the shadow of Thomas's crimes, it was finally ending. "There's something else." Ruth added, her expression softening. "Dr. Whitfield stopped by the store this morning. He asked about you, Clara." "About me." "He wants to talk to you about opening a clinic. Says the territory needs more medical care, and you're the most qualified person he's met in years." Ruth leaned forward. "He's offering to sponsor you, help you get set up, provide equipment, even share patients until you're established." Clara's heart skipped. "A clinic? My own clinic?" "That's what he said." Ruth grinned. "Seems like you made quite an impression when you fixed up Miguel's leg. Word got around." Sam was watching her with an expression she could not quite read. "What do you think?" "I think—" Clara stopped, overwhelmed by the enormity of what was being offered. A chance to practice medicine again. A chance to use the skills Thomas had tried to take from her. A chance to build something that was truly her own. "I think I need to talk to Dr. Whitfield." The meeting happened the next day. Dr. James Whitfield was everything Clara had hoped, a kind, practical man with decades of experience and a genuine desire to help his community. He laid out his proposal clearly. Clara would work under his supervision for 6 months, learning the territory and its people. After that, she would open her own practice in Bozeman with his full support. "I'm getting old," he admitted. "My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, and my eyes aren't what they were. This territory needs someone younger, someone with modern training. When I heard about what you did for young Miguel, I knew you were the one." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Dr. Whitfield smiled. "You've got a gift, Mrs. Whitmore. Don't let it go to waste." Clara looked at Sam, who had insisted on coming with her. His face was carefully neutral, but she could see the hope in his eyes. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." The weeks flew by after that. Clara threw herself into her work, learning everything she could from Dr. Whitfield. She treated cuts and broken bones, delivered babies, and eased the passing of the elderly. Every patient she helped, every life she touched, felt like a reclaiming of something Thomas had stolen. But the nights belonged to Sam. They talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Clara told him about her childhood in Boston, about her father's death, and her mother's desperate marriage to a man who promised security and delivered misery. Sam told her about growing up on the ranch, about his father's harsh lessons, and his mother's gentle love. "She died when I was 12, he said one night, his voice soft in the darkness. "Fever took her just like it took Elizabeth later. I was too young to understand why God would take the best people and leave the worst." "Do you understand now?" "No." Sam was quiet for a moment. "But I've stopped asking. Some questions don't have answers. All you can do is keep going, keep loving, keep hoping that the next sunrise will be better than the last." Clara reached for his hand. "That's wisdom. That's survival." He turned to face her, his eyes intense. "Clara, there's something I need to ask you." Her heart stuttered. "What is it?" "Not here, not like this." Sam stood, pulling her to her feet. "Come with me." He led her outside, past the newly rebuilt barn, past the corrals where horses drowsed in the moonlight. They walked until they reached the hill overlooking the ranch, the place where Sam had told her Elizabeth was buried. "I brought you here because I wanted her to see," Sam said quietly. "I wanted her to know that I didn't forget her, but I also didn't stop living. She would have wanted me to be happy." "Sam, let me finish." He took both her hands, his grip trembling slightly. "When you climbed into my wagon, I thought it was the strangest thing that had ever happened to me. A city woman in dusty clothes, looking lost and scared and beautiful all at once. I didn't know what to do with you." Clara laughed, despite the tears building in her eyes. "I didn't know what to do with me either. But then I got to know you. I saw your strength, your courage, your kindness. I watched you face down Holloway without flinching. I watched you save Miguel's leg and comfort Maria and stand beside me when everything was burning." Sam's voice cracked. "And I knew you were the one I'd been waiting for my whole life." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a tiny diamond that caught the moonlight. "It was my mother's," Sam said. "My father gave it to her when they were married, and she wore it until the day she died. I've been saving it for someone worthy of her memory." "Sam." Clara Ann Whitmore. His voice was steady now, filled with certainty. "Will you marry me?" The word came out before she could think, before doubt or fear could stop her. "Yes." Sam's face broke into a smile so bright it rivaled the stars. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her with all the love and longing he had been holding back. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I love you more than I knew it was possible to love anyone." "I love you too." Clara pulled back to look at him, memorizing every line of his face. "You saved me, Sam. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other." He kissed her forehead gently. "Now let's go home." The wedding was held a month later on a perfect summer day. The whole valley turned out neighbors and friends. Patients Clara had treated, families who had stood with them against Holloway. Ruth was Clara's matron of honor, beaming with pride. Zeke stood as Sam's best man, his arm finally out of its sling. Maria had spent 3 days cooking, and the tables groaned with food. Children ran through the yard, their laughter bright and carefree. Even Dr. Whitfield came, presenting Clara with a medical bag embossed with her new initials. "For your practice," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Mrs. Clara Brennan has quite a ring to it." The ceremony was simple, performed by the minister from Bozeman under a canopy of wildflowers. Clara wore a dress Ruth had helped her make, simple white cotton with lace at the collar. Sam wore his best suit, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Do you, Samuel Jacob Brennan, take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife?" "I do." Sam's voice was strong and sure. "Do you, Clara Ann Whitmore, take this man to be your lawful wedded husband?" Clara looked at Sam, at the man who had shown her what love could be, who had fought for her and believed in her when she could not believe in herself. Everything she had endured, every wrong turn and terrible mistake, had led her to this moment. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Sam pulled her close and kissed her, while the crowd erupted in cheers. Clara laughed against his lips, joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her. "Hello, Mrs. Brennan," Sam whispered. "Hello, husband." The celebration lasted well into the night. Clara danced with Sam, with Zeke, with Dr. Whitfield, and Thomas Hawkins, and every neighbor who asked. She ate Maria's tamales and Ruth's apple pie and cake that Mrs. Henderson had baked especially for the occasion. And through it all, she kept looking at Sam, hardly believing that this was her life now, that the woman who had fled Boston with nothing but scars and secrets was now standing in the middle of a community that loved her, married to a man who would die before he let anyone hurt her again. Late that night, when the guests had finally gone and the ranch was quiet, Sam and Clara sat together on the porch. Biscuit lay at their feet, snoring contentedly. "Regrets?" Sam asked. "Not a single one." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. "You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Think of all the time we wasted." "We didn't waste it. We were becoming the people who could love each other." Clara smiled. "I had to break before I could heal, and you had to grieve before you could let yourself feel again. When did you get so wise?" "I learned from a stubborn cowboy who wouldn't give up on me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Clara thought about everything that had brought her here. The wrong wagon, the right man, the battles they had fought together. "I want to tell you something," she said softly. "What is it?" Clara took his hand and pressed it to her stomach. "I saw Dr. Whitfield yesterday, not for clinic business." Sam went very still. "Clara, are you saying—" "I'm saying that by next spring we're going to need another room in this house." Her voice trembled with emotion. "We're going to have a baby, Sam." For a long moment Sam did not move. Then he let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and pulled her into his arms so tight she could barely breathe. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby. Our baby." Clara was crying now, but they were tears of pure joy. "I never thought I would have this. I never thought I deserved it." "You deserve everything." Sam pulled back to look at her, his own eyes wet. "You deserve happiness and peace and a family that loves you. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you have all of it." The clinic opened the following month. Clara hung the sign herself, "Clara Brennan, Nurse Practitioner," while Sam stood watching with pride in his eyes. The building was small, just 2 rooms in town, but it was hers. Her dream. Her future. Patients came slowly at first, then in increasing numbers. Clara treated everything from snake bites to difficult births, from childhood fevers to the aches of old age. Word spread that the Brennan nurse was skilled and kind, that she charged fair prices and never turned anyone away. "You're making a difference, Doctor," Whitfield told her one afternoon, watching her bandage a farmer's injured hand. "This community needed you." "They needed someone," Clara said. "I'm just grateful it gets to be me." But even as her practice grew, Clara never forgot where she came from. She treated women who reminded her of herself, women with bruises they could not explain, with fear in their eyes, with husbands who did not deserve them. She did what she could, offering help and hope and a safe place to rest. "You can't save everyone," Sam reminded her gently when she came home exhausted and heartbroken after losing a patient to violence. "I know." Clara leaned against him, letting his strength support her. "But I can try. I can keep trying until my last breath." Their daughter was born in April, screaming loud enough to be heard 3 counties over. "She's got your lungs," Sam said, cradling the tiny bundle with the awe of a man witnessing a miracle. "And my stubbornness. God help us all." Clara laughed weakly, exhausted, but happier than she had ever been. They named her Elizabeth Rose Elizabeth for the woman Sam had loved and lost. Rose for Clara's mother, who had sacrificed everything to give her daughter a chance. Ruth declared herself the baby's official godmother and showered her with more gifts than any child could possibly need. "She's perfect," Maria said, tears streaming down her face as she held the baby for the first time. "Absolutely perfect." Life settled into a rhythm after that. Sam ran the ranch with Zeke's help, expanding the herd and building their future year by year. Clara split her time between the clinic and home, watching Elizabeth grow from a screaming infant into a curious, fearless child who followed her father everywhere. There were hard times, of course. Droughts and blizzards, sick cattle, and difficult patients. A second pregnancy that ended too soon, leaving Clara grief-stricken, until Sam held her through the darkest nights and reminded her that they still had each other. Always each other. But through it all, the love remained. Steady and constant, like the mountains that surrounded their valley. Like the man who had smiled at a frightened woman in a dusty wagon and changed both their lives forever. On the morning of their 5th wedding anniversary, Sam took Clara to the hill overlooking the ranch. Elizabeth toddled between them, clutching her father's finger with one hand and her mother's with the other. "Look at this," Sam said softly. "Look at what we built." Clara looked. The ranch stretched out below them, bigger now than when she had first arrived. The house had grown too, with extra rooms for the children they hoped to have. The new barn was solid and strong, filled with horses that Sam had bred from his finest stock. And beyond the ranch, she could see the town of Bozeman growing every year, full of people who had become her family. "I remember when you first brought me here," Clara said. "I was so scared. Scared of Holloway, scared of my past, scared of hoping for anything good. And now—" Clara lifted Elizabeth into her arms, pressing a kiss to her daughter's soft hair. "Now I'm not scared of anything, because I know that whatever comes, we'll face it together." Sam wrapped his arms around them both, holding his whole world close. "Best wrong turn ever made," he murmured. Clara laughed, the sound bright and free. "You're still using that line?" "It's still true." He kissed her softly. "It'll always be true." They stood there together as the sun rose over Montana, a family built from chance and courage, from healing and hope. Behind them lay the shadows of the past, Thomas's cruelty, Holloway's schemes, all the pain that had tried to break them. But they had not been broken. They had been forged, made stronger by everything they had survived. And ahead of them lay the future, bright and open, full of possibilities they were only beginning to imagine. Clara had boarded the wrong wagon looking for escape. She had found instead exactly where she belonged, in the arms of a man who loved her, in the heart of a community that had claimed her as their own, in a life she had built with her own 2 hands, brick by brick, choice by choice, until it became something beautiful. She had stopped running. She had finally come home.